27?
They know where it is, by the way.
I was there, yeah, for sure.
Yes.
They predicted the future.
Always do.
Crazy. All right. Speaking.
not recording.
Yeah, no, it's all right. I'm not ashamed. We're in page 27 in the blue book. It's a great question where we are.
What was
We're in chapter 1. Oh, no, we're on page 27 in the ArtScroll Jaffa Elucidated
Yeah, we're in
edition.
chapter one.
Your classic Feldheim edition. Page 18? Okay. Before we begin, I just want to say that this whole book, what we're learning to do, we're trying to put it into practice to become closer to Hashem and to become better Jews. And the way to do that is small steps. I was just reading a book. I had a privilege to learn with Rav Kalman Levine, Zatzal, Hashem Yikum Damo, who was murdered in Harnof a few years ago in the shul. And one of his friends said about him that we sat next to each other in the Beis Medrash for the same amount of time, and I don't know how he became so great. And he says the way he did it was by working on himself little by little, and all the Hespedim, they said, and I was just reading them for the first time actually, they said that he took a topic to work on, like guarding his speech or davening, and he would take small steps and make small Kabbalahs, accept things on himself, and he would grow little by little by taking those small steps until he became a very great person. His son-in-law said that once by accident he got up at 3 o'clock on the morning of Yom Kippur, and he couldn't fall back to sleep, so he went to shul, and his father-in-law, Rabbi Levine, was already there learning, and he greeted him. And he was just, I learned with him, he was a very humble person. You couldn't even tell how great he was. He was just like your friend, even though he was a very big rabbi. And the way he became like that was just by working on himself little by little, and that's the goal. One of the goals we should take out from learning the Sefer is that we all have things we could work on, and we could do that by not trying to change overnight, but just taking small steps up the ladder. Okay, so the last thing we were discussing was that this world is like a hallway to the next world, that the true purpose of creation is to get pleasure from Hashem, being close to Hashem, and the real place where we get pleasure to Hashem and are close to Hashem is in the next world. This world is merely a corridor, is the means that we get, the means that we have to get to the next world. If we do what we're supposed to, we fulfill the mitzvahs and we overcome our physical desires, then we're going to have a greater pleasure in the next world, getting close to Hashem. We mentioned that, I think it was from Rav Elia Lapian, that that doesn't mean in this world there's no enjoyment, there's no spiritual enjoyment, because this world is like a hallway to the palace, and the hallway is usually related. It's not like a totally separate thing, but it's related to the palace you're going to. The hallway to the main room is like the main room. So just like we get spiritual pleasure in the next world, we could also get spiritual pleasure through doing mitzvahs and learning Torah and davening in this world. Okay, so let's begin or continue. God put us in a place where there are many things that could detract us from our mission. They could detract us from getting close to Hashem. They are the physical desires. The more we follow our physical taivas, our physical pleasures, the more we will distance ourselves from Hashem. We find ourselves in a great war. Everything in this world, whether it's good or whether it's evil, or not good, is a test for man. Whether it's poverty or wealth. Lest I say I'll become satiated and I'll deny Hashem. Or maybe I will become impoverished and I'll steal. So he's saying that every situation we find ourselves in could be a test, right? The test for poor people is obvious. They don't have enough money, so they're tempted. Maybe they'll steal food or they'll steal something else that they otherwise couldn't afford, and they'll violate the sin of stealing. Or perhaps if someone's wealthy, they have another test, right? You might think, okay, great, so I'm not poor. I don't have that test. I'm not tempted to steal because I have enough to support myself. However, but the test of wealth is also very strong. Perhaps you have everything you need, and you don't need to rely on Hashem. A person could tend to think that everything that he has came from his own abilities and his own strengths, and therefore he has no reason to rely on Hashem, and he totally forgets Hashem. That's a big test. So whether a person's poor or whether a person's wealthy, they are both tests from Hashem. No matter what situation we find ourselves in, there are always challenges that we have and detractions that will detract us from our true mission of fulfilling the mitzvahs and getting close to Hashem. Hashav mitzad echad, tranquility on one aspect, vayisur mitzad echad, or whether we're faced with test in life. Until we find the war, this war to get close to Hashem on all sides, right? A person who has difficulties in life, those it's obvious, right? People can get, besides back in Europe, when the non-Jewish governments were often trying to murder the Jews and decreeing onerous laws on the Jews about taxes, and they had to struggle for a livelihood and be worried that they couldn't go out at certain times of the year, specifically this time of year, because lest they non-Jews in some religious fervor murder a Jew walking down the street. They had a lot of tests. It was a very difficult challenge to be a Jew, and the Jewish people were very poor in Europe for in general for the last several hundred to thousand years, right? But yet we find there's stories of your average Jew in Europe. He would for hours and hours, either the milkman or the wagon driver, but he would be up from 4 a.m. learning 4 hours before he went to work. Those who overcame those challenges became very, very successful. Then on the other hand, you have stories when people came to America and life was a lot easier, that they abandoned Judaism totally because, it's easy. So we have everything we need. We don't need, life is very good. There's no reason to turn to Hashem. So whatever situation we find ourselves in, we shouldn't think that, if I was in this situation, I would be able to serve Hashem better, or that situation. Every situation that we find ourselves in has its challenges, and the important thing is that we recognize what those challenges are, and that we're able to overcome them. I think we would agree that in general, right, life is definitely much easier than it was for Jews in the past, right? We all have struggles, but it seems that we're much better off than we were, and that tends to lend itself to us saying, we're very, very complacent. We live in a very comfortable place, and generally have what we need. So it's very easy for us to forget Hashem and to not work on getting close to Hashem. Whereas, sometimes if you have an outside force pushing you, that could be a little easier. Or on the other hand, someone who goes through life and has a lot of difficulties tends to get upset at God and get mad at God, and that could be a challenge. Okay, V'im yeh ben chayil. ArtScroll translated this awesome. I think valiant. If a person will be valiant. V'natzach hamelchama mikol tzaddim, and one's victorious in the battle. Hu yihi ha'adam hashalim asher yizke ledavik b'baro v'yetzim min ha'prusdor hazeh v'yikanis b'traklin la'or b'or chaim. If a person will be successful in overcoming these various challenges that are in his life, he will merit to become close to Hashem, and he'll go from this hallway that he's in, which is this world, and enter to Olam Haba, this great palace with a wonderful light. Ukfi hashir asher kavash es yitzro v'ta'avaso v'nisrachik min amarchikim oso me'atov v'nishtadol davik bo ken yasigehu v'yismach bo. And according to the degree which he conquers his desires and he conquers his taivas, that's the degree where he'll be rewarded in Olam Haba to get close to Hashem. So if we think about it, the whole purpose of life is that we overcome these physical taivas, these desires that we have to get away from Hashem, and we have these challenges, and to the degree which we conquer those challenges, we'll get more reward and come closer to Hashem in the next world. So it's something to keep in mind next time we're faced with a challenge, whether it's to do an Aveira or to do something that would take us away from Hashem. If we think, wow, God created me for this moment right now, that I should overcome this test, that could be a tremendous chizuk. It could inspire us to overcome that test and to grow, because really that's the whole reason I'm here. Everything in life is just for that I overcome those tests and come closer to Hashem, and I grow as a Jew. Okay. Right, there are many. The whole, as he's saying, the whole everything in the physical world could be something that takes us away from Hashem, and this world is really just a hallway, as he keeps saying, to get to the next world. And I think we probably all know this famous story of the Chafetz Chaim, right? This is, I think Rav Yisrael also quoted it here, that a wealthy man was traveling through Radin, and he came to the Chafetz Chaim, and he noticed the Chafetz Chaim had a very humble apartment. He said to the Chafetz Chaim, he says, where are all your furniture? How come we don't have fancy furniture? So he says, well, let me ask you, you're traveling through, where's your fancy furniture? He's like, well, I'm just passing through. And the Chafetz Chaim said, so am I. Right? If we have the view that this world is just a means to an end to get to the next world, the spiritual world, and all these things that many people spend their whole lives focused on, buying a big house, buying a yacht, having this, going to this restaurant, that restaurant, all those things become less important when we realize that this is just a way station to Olam Haba. If you notice, if you ever visit like a big rabbi, or if you've ever been to like Rav Elyashiv's house or Chaim Kanievsky's house, they're very humble homes, right? Versus the heads of other religions, they live in literal palaces. They call it the something palace. And whereas the big rabbis, you see, they recognize that they're just here for a short time, and they're just passing through. So they live that way because they want to dedicate their whole lives to spirituality. My Rosh Yeshiva was very close with Rav Aaron Leib Steinman. He said, if you ever met him, he passed away a few years ago when he was 103 or something, 101, and something like that. And my Rosh Yeshiva said his body was like a horse, like his soul and his body were like totally separate in a way. Like his body was just like there to move his soul around. Like it was almost like his body was like he was riding it like a horse. Like he was totally disconnected from his body. I think he had like a piece of like a cucumber was his lunch or something. But I'm not saying we have to be like that. But you just see that they worked. He's 104 and he worked his whole life to get to that spiritual level. That's what happens. Okay, let's go a little further. V'im tamek od be'enin. If you look further into the topic, Tirek ha'olam niver l'shimush adam. We'll notice, if you look more into the topic, that the entire universe was created for man. That's the purpose. Man is the ultimate creation. This we've said many times. That's why it's a little ridiculous to be a vegetarian, because God created animals for us to eat, for those that we can eat, to eat, and it's for our purpose. So to say that, we can't, obviously we're not supposed to harm animals for no reason, but God put animals and everything else for our use. Amnon, hinehu omid b'shikol gadol. Man stands with in a great balance. Ki ima adam nimshach achar olam u'misrachik mibaro. If a person goes after the world and to distance himself from his creator, hinehu miskalkal, he becomes, messed up. U'mikalkal olamimo, and he messes up the world with him. V'im hu sholit ba'atzmo v'nidbak b'baro. If he rules over himself and he clings to Hashem, clings to his creator, u'mishtamish min olam rak lios lo disua la'avodas baro, hu mis'ala ve'olam atzmo mis'ala imo. If he uses the world for what's in the world, just to get close to Hashem, then he'll be elevated and the world will be elevated with him, right? We're not supposed to just totally, have nothing to do with the world. We're supposed to use the physical world. However, we're supposed to use the physical world to serve Hashem. We're not supposed to use the physical world just to fulfill our own physical pleasures and our own desires. And we learned in Derech Hashem that even mundane tasks like eating breakfast, eating these cookies now, if we're thinking when we eat the cookies that I'm eating these cookies so I have strength to serve Hashem later, to learn better, to do mitzvahs, to do chesed, to spend time with my family and do chesed with them, then that's a mitzvah. We just turn eating rainbow sprinkle cookies into a mitzvah. Everything has opportunity to be a mitzvah, versus if you just do it because I'm starving and I want to stuff my face, that's not a mitzvah. And if you notice here, the Ramchal says that when a person does an Aveira, he gets messed up and the world gets messed up with him. Or when he does a mitzvah, he gets elevated and the world gets elevated with him. So that's Nefesh HaChaim. If we look in Shar Aleph, we see that when a Jewish person does a mitzvah and Aveira, since our souls are connected to Hashem, Hashem deals with the world based on the mitzvahs or Aveiras that we do. We actually can positively or negatively impact the entire world, the entire spiritual creation, and therefore the entire physical creation based on the mitzvahs or Aveiras that we do. So it's a tremendous responsibility we have to keep in mind that when we do a mitzvah, it's not just we're not just affecting ourselves, we're affecting the entire world. Let's go to the end of the paragraph. I have a line here at the end of the paragraph. It's a tremendous, it uplifts the world. It makes the world go up tremendously when we use the world for holy things. Actually, I think this is the same topic, so let's just do a couple more lines. This is what it refers to. We're talking about the light that was created during creation for Adam, which is a spiritual light. When the holy people saw, when it saw that the light that Hashem put away for the righteous people was happy. Shneimar or tzadikim yismach. V'nyin avnei hamakom shalachach Yaakov v'sam merashaisav amru Rav Yitzchak melamed sheniskabzu kulan lamakom echad v'haisa kol achas ameres alay aniach tzadik rosho. When Yaakov Avinu put his head down, all the rocks went under his head, because they wanted to be under the head of the tzaddik. I saw from Rav Matisyahu Salomon, he says that it's very difficult for us to understand the deeper meaning of these two topics, but he says the point is that everything was created for man. That's what we're supposed to take out of these two examples. But the depth of the meaning, it's definitely some spiritual thing here, which I don't know, and I think Rav Matisyahu says it's very hard for us to understand. So, Greg, any questions? Good. The end.